Welcome to Future Tech Talk episode 28. I apologize for my absence last week. I had a pretty difficult bout with COVID. It was beating me up pretty bad. It definitely was an illness like no other. It's hard to explain. I didn't necessarily have a cold. I didn't necessarily have the flu. I had a terrible headache all the way from the back of my neck, like around my skull. And to put it simply, I just didn't feel good. I understand what feeling healthy feels like, and I was so far away from that line, I was out of commission. Anyways, got a lot of talking points for today. A bit of a yearly recap, as this will be posted close to January 1st. I've got my thoughts on the movie Oppenheimer, and if you don't believe that's future technology, then I politely disagree. Nonetheless, there will be timestamps below the video in the description, so if you want to skip around to hear my thoughts, go right ahead. Yesterday, I was at the gym, and I thought I saw someone I knew. I thought I recognized this guy. And that's a pretty weird thought to have. It's not like that happens often, so I was thinking in my brain, is that who I think it is? Why would I have the thought if it wasn't probably him? And I thought it was a friend from high school. It's been 15 years since the last time I saw him or talked to him, which is a pretty long time. And it feels honestly like yesterday, but no, it's been a while. And the last update I ever heard about him was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, right in the middle. And I heard that he was absolutely jacked. So I'm like, okay, that sort of fits. This guy was chiseled out of stone. I'm like, okay, that's probably him. I guess I had known him since maybe grade 7. And he was always a bigger dude. Him and his brother just have the biggest bones ever. Giant shoulders, giant back. So him working out for the last 15 years, I just extrapolated. I'm like, yeah, okay, that could probably be him. This is a big guy who works out a lot. The reason I'm telling you this is because I could feel my brain running a diffusion model about what someone used to look like and then what they might look like now. And I've generated so many pictures using AI, and I've seen so many programs that can age you or de-age you. I feel like I could feel my brain running its own version of those programs. Someone at 17 years old, what do they look like when they're 32? And I thought about even I saw him walking in the mirror behind me. I thought about just saying his name and then sort of hiding and seeing if he would look around, but I didn't do that. I went up to him after. I'm like, hey, are you so-and-so? He said, yeah. I'm like, do you recognize me? And he smiled and he's like, oh, you look familiar. Whatever, I said my name. And he's like, oh, wow, yeah. I don't know. He was happy to see me. It's been a long time. We used to be pretty good friends. We would hang out all the time. Him and his brother used to go into the movies. So that's what me and a couple other guys would do. And his brother was a couple years older and was the first one to have a car, really. So that's the coolest thing ever when you're a teenager, that if you can just get rides somewhere that isn't from parents. Good times. Anyways, okay, how about a less than formal recap of the year 2023? It's easy to say, oh, it flew by, but at the same time, so much has happened. So much. We started with version 4 of Midjourney at the beginning of the year. Version 4 was a few months in. We didn't get version 5 until the middle of March. So that's 3 months of version 4 to start the year. 2.5 maybe. Version 5 sticks around in its base form for a few months. And I think in June, maybe it was July, we get version 5.1. And that was basically the easy mode where you didn't have to type these super long prompts. And maybe I should mention that when version 5 started, you had to write really long prompts. You had to use multi-prompting. And I don't remember the Midjourney team making a big deal about it at the time. I suppose They just acknowledged that prompting was a little different and maybe it was more difficult. Like, the less you wrote, the less Midjourney gave you. It was a very literal model. And version 5.1 kind of threw that out the window, put a bunch of hidden prompts behind the scenes, and gave you beautiful images if you just typed blah, blah, blah. If you typed in a dog, it would give you a much more artistic expression of a dog that you had come to expect from the bot in version 3 and in version 4. Then maybe version 5.2 launches in, I'll say, August. It could have been September. I don't think it was any later than that. And version 5.2 was more of the same of 5.1. It was just an extra step up the ladder. 5.2, based on what I know of how these models work, 5.2 was trained on the same data and the same architecture as version 5. So 5.2 was a version 5 model. It was the newest version of that, which means they applied the lessons they learned over the months and basically provided us with the newest version of what they could do. Version 5 lasted a long time, just the whole idea of version 5. So from March until literally the end of December, like the 23rd or 22nd, maybe? No, I guess it was earlier than that. No, when was it? It must have been a bit earlier than that. Maybe it was like the 18th or the 19th. Could have been the 17th. Midjourney launches version 6, and there was a lot of anticipation of version 6. A lot of people in my comment section were getting just sick and tired of Midjourney taking their sweet time. And I was always flabbergasted getting those comments. I'm like, what do we know about anything? This is a state-of-the-art company. I don't know how to make an AI model. Like, I feel like patience is the absolute easiest thing to exercise when you have no control over the outcome. Like, what was there any reason to be frustrated about? But people were frustrated, and it's because other models were introducing things like video, and DALL-E 3 had really crisp coherence. You could prompt for quite a bit and get quite a bit back. So people were sick of version 5.2 that could not get more than like 2 details correct. And those details had to be really generic, basic things. Like you couldn't ask for something crazy. You definitely could not ask for 2 things that were crazy. Or you get some blend of it. Like Midjourney, the older models, 5.2, you could say a bunch of different things and it would kind of combine them all together. DALL-E 3 and the hope for version 6 was that you could say a bunch of different things and Midjourney would sort of make them one at a time in the entire picture. And that is certainly what happened. They warned us pretty heavily that we were going to have to relearn how to prompt. That version 6 was unlike anything they had previously made, and they were correct. It's overwhelming to the point of like, staring into the void of space. Like my brain has sort of taken a back seat and just, instead of rushing to understand it, I fully well know that I can't. Like, it's so powerful. You can ask for so many details, like, way over 10 details, and the thing keeps adding it to the pictures. You can ask for things that absolutely do not exist, and it's able to understand what you're asking for. And even the craziest thing is that you can ask it using natural language in the same way that you talk to GPT. It's not the exact same, but it's similar enough to where you're like, wait, there's no right answer. There's no proper way. There's no proper syntax anymore. Like, you can probably even tell from me just speaking now, it's hard to summarize just how powerful this technology is. Where do you begin? I'll just give a simple example. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've probably seen my other videos, but you can say, imagine a picture of a guy wearing a white hat, red sunglasses, blue lipstick, a yellow necklace, a green sweater, blue pants with a red belt, and diamond shoes. And it understands everything you've asked for. There's no blending. Like the most minimal amount of blending, I should say, because it kind of happens sometimes. And yeah, it's difficult to even comprehend. Like if there's a new feature in Photoshop, it's probably pretty easy to make a video about it. There's a lot of documentation that comes with updates. There's a lot of clear, applicable situations. Hey, if you're doing this and then you need this, use this new tool. Great, simple, easy. Midjourney and AI generation is so unlike anything that's ever existed. How do you give advice on when to use it? Oh, you want something? Well, oh, you want anything? Oh, you're trying to do this? Well, you can do it with this. Like, picture like a kitchen pantry with literally any food ever available, any ingredient you could ever think of. Which recipe are you going to give first? What video are you going to make? If you had a limited pantry and you made a video like, hey, if you have these 6 ingredients in your kitchen, here's what you can make. That makes a lot of sense. If you had access to every ingredient ever created at your fingertips, what video would you make first? What educational recipe would you talk about first? It's pretty frustrating. I find it frustrating. I find it fascinating. But at the same time, I understand that a lot of other people are overwhelmed, so I don't feel that bad about it. Like, I don't necessarily feel less than or like not a good YouTuber because I can't process the information as quickly as I'd like. I'm sort of just accepting of, well, this is going to take some time and I'm just going to chip in with whatever I can figure out on my own and relay that to other people. It's, oh my God, Midjourney version 6 can draw text now. It doesn't necessarily write words over an image. I've heard it described as filling in pixels in the shape of letters. So that's a little different. That's why you can't just ask for any text, any long text to be placed on top of your image. It's much more coherent when you ask for something that already has a lot of references of text, like a license plate, and then you can ask for that license plate to say something specific, and it's more likely to be able to paint what you want with the pixels available in the image, if that makes sense. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like, I've tried a few times to have words written in the stars, and maybe I'm just not explaining it correctly, but I can't get Midjourney to do that at all. And I guess there's just not a lot of references of what stars in the shape of, maybe that's how I could describe it. Looking up at the night sky, you see a bunch of stars in the shape of the word blah, blah, blah. That could work. But again, you know, if you were asking for something like a business card or a sign on a door, that it's way easier to get it to say the words you're looking for. And there should be an update like by next week making text even easier to write. This technology progresses so fast. I just made a video about generating text and I mentioned some of the limitations, and those limitations are going to be gone so soon. Videos just become obsolete just like that, snap of the fingers. What you taught last week is no longer, it no longer matters. Maybe that's why the education system is in so much trouble, and maybe that's why creating some sort of syllabus around AI is nearly impossible, because a teacher has so many other responsibilities. To expect them to be able to stay up to date and to be able to teach that to, honestly, anyone from adults to way younger children. How could you face a class, teach them one thing, walk in the next week and say, hey, remember what I taught you that's not right anymore. It's not the right answer. It was the right answer. And if we had done a pop quiz last week, you would have known what to do. If we did a pop quiz this week, you'd be incorrect. Like, that is such a difficult thing to broadcast to a bunch of different brains. You know, if you're teaching math or science, you're teaching some very well established facts for the most part. Maybe there's some theory involved, but the information doesn't change from week to week. AI is capable of progressing so fast. Teaching something is it's almost ridiculous. Like, when is it ever going to stabilize enough for a curriculum? That's something I struggle with all the time in terms of teaching. And if I want to make a video, how quickly do I have to make it before it's not worth making? Because whatever information I have planned for it, like, how long will that information stay relevant? And it varies from topic to topic within Midjourney. Like, certain prompts that work right now, I don't necessarily like making those videos, but I know and I realize that not making those videos when they're relevant is probably the worst thing I could do, because they're only going to get less and less applicable as time moves forward. And maybe I could just talk about YouTube in general in the past year. I started 2023 with maybe like a couple thousand subscribers, like maybe 2,000. I had a video be successful like December 10th of 2022, and I got quite a bit subscribers that month. So maybe I started in January at like between 2 and 3,000. I'll start this January at around 32,000. And, the year definitely felt like it went by fast, but at the same time, to grow 30,000 subscribers in 12 months, it took me like 4 months to get to 1,000 subscribers, and then 12 months to get 30. And it's hard. It makes me really uncomfortable because I don't handle that sort of public attention very well. And the only way I'm able to get through it is just by not paying attention to it. Like, I try not to think about it. I remember being so uncomfortable after that video did well in December. Like, I was, how do I put it? I was in some sort of system shock. Like my consciousness was fight or flight. I was frozen. A deer in the headlights. I did not handle that increase in attention very well at all. And I remember explaining to someone that, when I had 300 subscribers, I was cool with that. It made a lot of sense. It'd be like if you're in a band and you're playing in a bar, you're playing a small gig, 300 people, cool, we're having a good time. I felt like I knew everyone in the audience. It made sense to have 300 subscribers. The video does well, and I get 3,000 subscribers, and I was scared isn't the right word, but I did not handle the idea of making a video in front of 3,000 people very well at all. It went from feeling like you're playing in a bar, in a band, you're playing your gig at a bar, to playing at a theater. I'm like, I was the exact same person. I didn't do anything special. All of a sudden, your venue now holds 3,000 people. Like, for sure, last January, I struggled with the behind the scenes of making a video, knowing that this amount of people is going to be notified of my existence. I don't know how many other YouTubers have ever dealt with something like that, because I feel like that's the dream of a lot of YouTubers, is more attention, more eyes on their videos. A lot of them seem to only care about subscribers going up and views going up, and I'm just quite the opposite of that. So I don't know how much advice there is out there for how to deal with that. For me, it was just a time thing. Like, it took like 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, basically a month, to kind of just get over it. And, it becomes the new normal. You stop freaking out about it, and you're just like, okay, whatever. You haven't changed, so you're just going to keep making videos. And I think that was a downfall for me, honestly. Like, when I was making videos for 300 people, I made the videos I wanted to make. I was making experiment videos. I'm like, hey, what happens if this does this? And that works well for a small audience, but when you get more attention, you realize that those people are coming to your channel for something more specific. And if you didn't know this about YouTube, but the way it works is that when you upload a new video, it's going to show it to a small bubble of your subscribers. If those subscribers that it first shows it to do not watch, YouTube, the algorithm is like, oh, well, this video is not very good then, and it stops showing it to everyone. Let me give you an example. This will make more sense. I make Midjourney videos, AI videos. Like, I can get away with making videos about other AIs depending on the title and thumbnail, but I'll just give you a completely different example. If I made a cooking video, how to make breakfast, the breakfast of champions, it doesn't matter how good that video is. It doesn't matter. It literally does not matter if it was a masterpiece. YouTube is going to show this cooking video to people who have subscribed to my channel, and those people have subscribed for Midjourney tutorials, basically. So when those people do not click on the cooking video, YouTube will not even attempt, not even the slightest attempt, to get it in front of people who want to watch cooking videos. They're going to look at the first bubble, and they're going to realize that there was no exit velocity of the idea. They test it with your subscribers. If that doesn't work, that's their test. You have to fulfill the first circle, achieve exit velocity, burst through the bubble, and then you get shown to a larger bubble. Eventually, it will go through all your subscribers, basically all your subscribers. If you satisfy all of your existing subscribers, YouTube will then start showing it to people. It will start showing it to new people outside of your existing bubble. And that's really the only way to gain new subscribers. Satisfy your existing ones first. Long story short, you realize pretty quickly that you will have no success on YouTube by making the videos you want. You'll hear a lot of YouTubers say this, like, all right, this is a new me this year. I'm going to focus more on what I want. I'm not chasing the algorithm. And maybe that works if you have like 5 million subscribers and you have a ton of fans. If you have like 100,000 dedicated fans that will watch your videos no matter what, yes, you can probably make videos about whatever you want. But if you have 5,000 subscribers or 10,000 and maybe 70 of those are diehards who will watch whatever video you make, YouTube is not going to get enough of a signal from those 70 people to push your videos out to others. So if I don't make, tutorial videos honestly don't even work that well for me. Some of them do, but some don't, because a lot of people don't really care about that, I guess. More people are excited about updates, and I don't blame them. Updates are fun. And my sort of plan when I started YouTube was to ride the coattails of Midjourney. They were doing weekly office hours. I could hear the owner speak about what they were trying to accomplish. I could hear him say that updates were coming. These are the updates they're working on. Traditional companies might update their audience once a year. Like if you only made videos on Apple updates, you'll have one video a year at their big conference, But with Midjourney, I knew updates would be coming quite often, thanks to just the nature of AI. And thanks to the office hours, I could sort of visualize what these updates might look like, and I could kind of plan around them. Like I know what's coming, I know what they're working on. So I'm not necessarily blindsided by content I wasn't prepared for. So I always thought that would sort of be how my channel would continue to grow, is be the place to explain the updates, because we know that Midjourney does not, they're scientists, I think you could say. Maybe you could call them artists too. It's basically the same thing. They're not necessarily good communicators. I've tried to fill that void that I saw, and it worked. But the lack of updates in the last 4 or 5 months before version 6 forced me to kind of make the videos I want, which is hit or miss, because I have like 200 video ideas sitting on my computer. I don't really know which ones to make other than the ones I want to make. Like it's really tough to move forward with an idea when you have so many to choose from. And I would get a lot of comments when making the videos just being like, well, when's the new update? Like that's what people want, are the updates. So for Midjourney to go a pretty long time without an update was, I don't know if it was frustrating. There's nothing I could do about it. It just definitely left me in a bit of a limbo in terms of how I can move forward, living and doing YouTube full time. Sorry for treating this like a therapy session. I just feel like it's been a long year and I don't talk about this stuff very publicly, so might as well recap it in a way that might be interesting to hear at some point in the future. That this is what the year 2023 was like. And what the Midjourney team talked a lot about during office hours, this is coming from the owner, is you can either produce software on a date-based release cycle or a feature-based release cycle. Do we release the new update when all of the features are ready? That's what Midjourney was trying to do, and that's why version 6 took like 9 months to make. They wanted to cram everything they could into it. And I think they wanted it out in August, and the models they trained weren't good enough. Then they wanted it out in September, wasn't good enough. October wasn't good enough. November wasn't good enough. It was around November that they admitted maybe their strategy isn't correct, and maybe they should release their updates on a date-based cycle. Whatever they have finished gets released. No more waiting for everything to be perfect. And selfishly, that would help my channel a ton. But unselfishly, it's just what the community wants. It's people do not care about version 6 in this sense. People would have been so happy with a 5.3 and a 5.4 and a 5.5. They would have been just as happy with those as they would have been way happier with those than waiting in silence all of those months for version 6. And a lot of people don't listen to the real office hours. They just listen to my recap. And they don't get to hear the CEO say it in his own words. They only hear my interpretation of it. And I try my best to just explain how it sounded to me. But it's way different hearing it from the horse's mouth. When you hear David talk, you can tell that he's not lying. He's just telling you what they're working on. They want to release something next week. They're going to try. And then when I relay that message and it doesn't happen, it sounds like a lie, even though it obviously wasn't. And I think it led to people getting frustrated, thinking that they were just stringing their audience along and they're all about profit. And it's like, oh no, that's so wrong. Like they don't care about money at all. It's such an interesting company, and that's why I love Midjourney so much. So it just became an interesting portion of the year where I had to really think about what my channel was without Midjourney updates. What can I provide? Luckily, there is a lot of material to teach, but that doesn't necessarily translate well into YouTube videos, especially with the way I like to teach. I know there's a lot of channels on YouTube that kind of categorize themselves as edutainment, education and entertainment. And I personally cannot make videos like that. I think they're awful. No, let me rephrase that. They're great, but they're awful at educating. There's this like one channel that, I watch to get YouTube advice from. And there's one video in particular. I'm not going to name it. I don't want to provide any specifics. But I couldn't believe how unhelpful it was. Like, there was so much room in the video to really nail down the concept of what they were trying to teach. And they could have gone into the best practices of how to actually apply this new mindset and maybe some like homework you could do to get yourself thinking in this new way. Instead, they didn't do that at all. They did a bunch of camera cuts and filmed in a bunch of different scenes, different camera angles, different locations. And they just like briefly talked about this new idea. And I'm like, that's not helpful at all. This is the opposite of helpful. This is like distracting. Like edutainment, combining entertainment with education it's not compatible in my eyes. And I can't make videos like that. And I guess I don't hold it against these channels for doing that because it brings in a lot of views. A lot of people just would rather be entertained while being exposed to these new ideas, like whatever. But because I can't make videos like that, I think a lot of my videos are pretty dry, and I don't think a lot of people just want straight education. It's like, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't force them to watch my videos. I'm not going to clickbait them. So, in those months that I have been waiting for updates, I definitely started applying my knowledge into a course that I'm creating. And I'm like ready to start filming it, basically ready to start filming it, really close to being ready, where I can talk all I want about how to actually do things in Midjourney. I can be dry in a sense. I can provide a lot of information, but because it'll be in this course setting, the audience, I think, will be the exact audience that wants that type of information, which would lead me to possibly making more edutainment style videos where I can sort of gloss over specific details while still showing the end result. Like, hey, if you use these words in Midjourney, you can create this. And if you create this and combine it with this AI, that will give you this. That will result in X. And if you want to learn more about any of these specific things, you can check out my course. That's the idea. That's the idea for 2024, at least. Sorry, I know I kind of wanted to do a review of 2023 in technology, and I just sort of started talking about my YouTube journey. That might not be interesting to you, but this is my podcast, and I feel like if I'm ever going to take some liberties with topics, it's going to be here. But again, timestamps in the description. Skip ahead if you're not interested. Okay, I have maybe a couple of more topics that we can discuss. Before I get to Oppenheimer, I'm definitely a little worried about where 2024 is going to go in terms of all of these AIs getting stronger and stronger. Not just mimicking voices, but I'm more and more worried, and I've expressed this in past episodes, the divide between the progress and the general population. So many people have put their heads in the sand. They're not keeping up with anything. And the technology is only getting faster and faster. Like, looking at a treadmill that's moving really fast, it's pretty intimidating. It doesn't necessarily invite you to jump on. But not being on the treadmill means you're not in shape. Does that make any sense? Is that a good analogy, metaphor? I can't really remember the difference between those two. Staying aware of what is possible is so important, and yet it's not being stressed enough. It's like if there was ever a time for the entire world to slow down their own lives and to recalibrate, like, sports are not important. Reality shows are not important. Movies and music are not important. How we raise our children and the things they're exposed to in terms of technology, that's important. How we treat each other online. The fabric of society is more important than the design of society. If you think of design as like, oh, well, do you like country music or pop music or rap music? Whatever design of society you want to live in, I'm telling you, I don't think that's important at all. The society itself is more important. And if there was ever a time for everybody in society to just sort of ignore their hobbies for a little bit and focus and try and talk through how we're going to navigate this new world, I think this is the time to do that. And nobody is even attempting to do that whatsoever. No, you'll see it brought up on podcasts sometimes, and the people talking just laugh. They have no ideas of what to do. They say basically the same things of what I'm saying, like, oh, well, we better do something. We better figure out a way to educate the masses, and we better be aware of new cybersecurity threats where, geez, I heard about this scam that, someone from your family, their voice will be cloned. They'll call the grandma or the mom, pretending to be the son or daughter, and say, oh my God, I was just like in a car accident. I can't pay the tow truck. Quick, I need $500. And like, what do you want a parent to do when they hear their child's voice? God, it's mind-blowing because it doesn't have to be real anymore. And it's like, you have to be prepared for these scams. And if anyone is listening, which I know there's not that many of you, but one thing you'll have to incorporate in your lives is literally a password. Some phrase on the phone where, it's like the Terminator. Like, I kind of forget what he says in the phone booth when he's trying to talk to the mom of John Connor. And then he hangs up on her and he's like, no, your parents are dead, man. Like, it's like there needs to be, you need to be able to safely communicate that you are the real version of you, and that's just so terrifying. Maybe that's why I don't talk about this much, is because I don't really have anything other than that to say. So technology advances so fast. People are only concerned with what can it do next, and people are already bored with what is already possible, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. GPT-4 is amazing, and nobody cares. The people who use GPT care about the tool they have, but society is so busy and so diluted in terms of their attention span that even the biggest thing ever cannot grasp all of the brains out there. Like, I'm not saying I know what to do, but I am saying I'm so worried that we aren't prepared and that we're not even trying to get prepared for when these AIs get even better and when they wake up. Like, what about the day when, let's say it's next year or the year after, when the president or prime minister, wherever you're from, announces to their country that they're hiring an AI to be on their special counsel? That's going to be the first, that might be the first we learn about AGI. Maybe they say that, we're hiring an AI as a special defense force. Like, we're going to have an army military AI on the council, and we're going to have an economic AI. Oh, and then next year we're hiring officially the socio-political AI to help navigate, and then we're hiring a city planner AI, and it's just going to be one at a time, and nobody's really going to be paying attention. It's going to be announced in ways that you can't protest. People are going to be protesting other things, like things that really affect them. Even, it's just, don't look up, I think, is the best reference for all of that. Okay, sorry if this has been a downer of a recap, but let's talk about Oppenheimer. Now, the reason I'm considering this future technology, even though Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb was created like, I don't know, what, 80 years ago? Like 45? It was something like, yeah, like basically 80 years. That was a long time. It's future technology, okay? These people harnessed atoms and molecules and radioactive material, and they created the biggest bomb. That's future technology. It was super future technology back then, but it still blows my mind to this day, so I don't mind considering it as worthy to speak about. But I'm also a bit of a movie buff. I love movies so much I don't even watch them anymore because all I'd want to do is talk about them. But every once in a while, I'll watch a movie, and COVID was a great time to watch some movies because I was so sick I couldn't even sleep. So I found Oppenheimer online, and my very high level review of it is, I can't believe how good of a movie it was. I can't believe that somebody made a movie that good. When you hear that it's going to be a 3-hour movie about the guy who made the atomic bomb, they're like, what? How could it be good? What, are they just going to talk the whole time? And you're like, yeah. And it's going to be amazing. I sincerely have no idea how it's even possible. Like, you want to talk about a talent that, like, I don't know if anyone else has. I don't know if it's Christopher Nolan's team. I don't know where that vision comes from. Like, the thing that blows my mind the most is, was that movie all in his head before it was filmed? There are so many scenes in that movie. It makes more sense to me that if you filmed everything chronologically and you just have like 7 hours of footage of all these scenes, and then you cut each part into the smallest section possible, and you piece them together and you made a movie. That makes sense, but I don't think that's how movies are made. I don't think that's how Christopher Nolan makes movies. I don't think that's how actors make movies. You get a script, and a script implies a plan that there was a storyboard, and oh, the budget implies a storyboard. You just don't give millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars without being able to see what's going to be created beforehand. How that movie could have been in somebody's mind makes no sense to me. It's the most astonishing piece of media I've ever seen. Now, I don't know if that's because of COVID and if I was just so delirious and amazed. I don't know. But I do remember watching and being like, oh, is this almost over? This has felt like 3 hours. And I looked at the timeline and it was 1 hour. It had been like 61 minutes. And that felt like 3 hours. I don't know if that's because of COVID. I don't know if that's because there are so many scenes, so many scenes, so many locations, so much dialogue, so many scenes that 1 hour felt like 3 hours because you were getting so much. And there's a bit of a time time changing aspect to it where a portion of the movie happens before the bomb, a portion of the movie happens after the bomb, the aftermath of it, and then a portion of the movie is spliced in between. It's in black and white. It's way after the bomb, but you get glimpses of it throughout the movie, so there's a bit of time jumping going on. And then maybe I'll start diving into some spoilers here, so be warned. But there are so many good actors in that movie. The acting is amazing, but there are so many famous actors playing the smallest parts. And I wonder if every movie did that, how good every movie could be if you had Oscar winners show up for one scene. Like Gary Oldman plays the president. One scene. That's it. Like in a dialogue heavy movie, if you hire the best people to express the dialogue, like maybe, okay, that would be a good experiment. How good would Oppenheimer have been without those actors? I'd still say probably pretty good. The pacing is exceptional. The editing is amazing. The music is amazing. The acting is amazing, but those other things would be good without the actors, so it's a bit of a difficult one to wrap your head around. And then maybe the only real spoiler thing I can wonder about in terms of the plot is the difference between the audience's understanding of the events and the actual events in the movie. So in the movie, one of the main plot points or one of the main pain points, I guess you could say, is that the US government or people in the government don't necessarily trust Oppenheimer due to his past experiences with communist activities in America. Like when Oppenheimer was younger, he was an open mind, and I guess he even donated to some communist activities, maybe overseas. And he had relationships with people who were in the Communist Party. I think even his brother was. So that was kind of, I suppose, kept hidden from the government while he was working on the bomb. And then after, there was a bit of a push to discredit Oppenheimer and kind of tarnish his reputation. And a lot of the pushback against Oppenheimer was his role and maybe being a traitor, maybe not being loyal to the US government. Now, that's a cool plot point, I guess. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because the audience knows that Oppenheimer isn't a communist. Like, we know that the government is kind of screwing with him and that maybe some of these reports are falsified to an extent and maybe the truth is being obscured in the world of the characters, but the truth is never really obscured from us. Like, we know that Oppenheimer is loyal. There's no scene that gets cut short. I mean, there is literally one scene that you don't get to hear the dialogue of between Einstein and Oppenheimer. But there's no coordination that you're not aware of. There's no hint that Oppenheimer may have been disloyal. Unloyal? Disloyal? What's the right word? So it's a little strange that, like, one of the main mysteries to the characters in the movie is not a mystery to us. And I wonder what could have been if maybe there was a little more editing out certain parts to where the audience wasn't sure if Oppenheimer was loyal or not. That would have been interesting to see, like, a much longer narrative throughout the movie of, oh, you think you know who this guy is, but what did he really mean by that one scene? And then in the end, we find out, oh, he was a good guy, I guess. His heart was in the right place. But we knew that from the beginning. And it is just an odd scenario. Like if another movie was a murder mystery, and in the movie the characters didn't know who did it, and there's investigations and stuff going on, but the audience knew the truth from the start, and you're just watching people lie to each other and try to uncover the truth within their world. Like, maybe that would be interesting from a bird's eye view of knowing someone is lying and knowing people are manipulating. That could maybe be a cool murder movie, but that doesn't normally happen. Normally in mysteries, you're along for the ride. And in Oppenheimer, you're much more a fly on the wall of every conversation. You basically get to understand everyone's true point of view. There's no hint at the truth being hidden from the audience. The truth is hidden from each other. There's no internet. There are lies. There's newspaper articles written. There's, it's the world used to work in a different way. But again, the audience isn't living in that world. We're living in the internet world, and we know based on the camera, we know all of the truth. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but it was just an odd choice to know the truth when the characters didn't, or when some of the characters didn't. And I should say that, it's not a documentary, it's a movie. So you don't know if everything that was shown in the movie was true. In fact, there's almost no chance any of it was true in a certain way, because it happened so long ago. They didn't have perfect recordings of everything. It wasn't all documented on the internet. You just sort of piece together the best you can of the story that was told. Like, I've heard, I don't know if you could call it a conspiracy theory, but some sort of interpretation that the atomic power and the atomic production, came from different sources. Like that, I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't really know anything. All I'm saying is that a Hollywood movie, it doesn't have to tell you the truth. And something that happened so long ago, it probably doesn't know the truth. You're only telling the stories that you've heard. And maybe you can fact check some of it. But again, you just can't take what you see in that movie as being what really happened. There's just no way to know. And they condense so many years into 3 hours, like 15 years over the course of the movie, maybe even more than that, condensed into 3 hours with these really short scenes. So who knows what really happened, but it's a very fascinating movie. And there's an interesting struggle between the creator of the technology and the people who use the technology, being the military, and how the military has to explain to Oppenheimer that, like, you don't get a say in how we use this. Like, thank you for building it, but your job's done. Like, you don't own it. It's not yours. We'll take your advice, but, don't worry about how we're going to use it. And that can be a little troubling to think about AI in the same way. Like, oh, hey, thanks. You made an AI that can do perfect facial recognition and pattern judgment and prediction. Don't worry how we're going to use it, but thank you for creating it. And then that scientist is going to be like, well, what have I done now? I've subjugated the entire city to mass surveillance. Ooh, that's a dark note to end this podcast on. But as usual, that's where we're going to end it. Okay. I hope you're doing well. I hope we have a good 2024. I hope you had a good 2023. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of my life. I don't know where I'd be without you. I appreciate you acting as a therapist, a digital modern day therapist where I can talk about things that I don't normally get to talk about. Thanks again. I hope you're doing well. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Peace.